For those of you who are somehow unaware of this magnificent series, LEGO Power Miners was a series of sets from 2009 to 2010. It focuses on a group of miners who fight rock monsters for control of some power crystals. This series had so much going for it. An interesting plot and setting, giant colorful mining machines, and really cool rock monster figures that could actually open up their mouths and eat stuff. To this day, this is still one of the coolest things ever to me. You know, you can just open the mouth and you put the crystal in there, and yeah, it's so cool! Where was I? LEGO Power Miners is, in my opinion, one of their best series of all time, and I could easily talk about it long enough to justify making a whole other video. So I will. Keep a lookout for that future video, along with several others I want to make about this late 2000s, early 2010s era of LEGO. With all that said, it's finally time to get into my MOC. Here it is in all of its glory. A brand new Power Miners vehicle, fully custom made by yours truly. This vehicle is meant to be sort of a cleanup service for the other Power Miners. They have a lot of machinery devoted to drilling tunnels and crushing up rock, but very little in the form of cleaning up all the rubble they leave behind. Thus, I have created this snowplow of sorts, but for rocks. A rock plow, if you will, which can remove the abundance of excess rocks the other vehicles create. So, as you can see, the rock plow can scoop up some of these rocks. Sorta. So maybe the miner has to get out and manually loads a bit of rock on his plow. So what? Anyway, the rocks get scooped up by the plow and are raised up by this little turn wheel on the side here. This is where the claw comes in. It can reach over to the plow and pick out the best parts of the debris. Specifically, the miners are looking for the power crystals, so it can grab the crystal and rotate around to deposit it into the storage container in the back. Once this crate is full of crystals, it can be deposited into the piles that these miners have doubtlessly collected by now. I mean, they've been at this since 2009. I'd expect some pretty sizable progress to have been made since then. Anyway, back to the build. Some of you might be wondering what this rock plow does with all the extra rocks once the crystals are picked out. Well, I'm glad you hypothetically asked. Watch this! Now, perhaps this isn't the most practical way to dispose of rocky refuse, but it's definitely a fun one. On the topic of practicality, actually, I figured the best way for me to finish showing off the build would be to take it apart. I realize that this might not make too much sense right now, but just go with me on this one. Now that I have a blank slate before me, I can bring you through my thought process as I constructed the build, to hopefully give you a better understanding of it. Now, I've never really done anything like this before, so keep that in mind as I do my best to try to explain how this came to be. First off, the thing that inspired this whole project was this claw right here. Now I know it doesn't look like much, but when I got this huge rocket set, this claw stood out to me, and I knew I wanted to build something special with it. It just screams Power Miners! So I had the concept brewing in my mind, but I needed to consider some basic design elements that were necessary to construct the build. Namely, I needed to figure out the basic shape, a way to incorporate the classic Power Miners color scheme, and a unique gimmick. I decided to tackle the color problem first, by taking a look at our supplies in lime green and orange. Now in retrospect, I should have recorded some of these clips prior to using up most of our collection's lime green and orange pieces. The point is, we don't have very many of either of these colors, so I need to get a bit creative on what I should use. As I was experimenting with a couple of orange pieces, you know, putting them together and taking them apart with a brick separator, I noticed that the brick separators had a remarkably similar shape to these curved pieces. Once I had cobbled them together, they looked like a plow. Unknowingly, I had accidentally solved the problem of my unique gimmick. It was going to be a rock plow. Just to be safe though, I cross-referenced my own collection and pictures of other sets online, and confirmed this build would indeed have original concept for the series. Now I had a few orange centerpieces, the plow made of brick separators, the claw that inspired this project, and this storage container thingy I found. And I figured I could just fill the remaining space on my vehicle with whatever lime green I could find. Now I just needed to figure out what this thing was actually going to look like. I figured there would be no better place to look for inspiration than the Power Miner sets themselves. Now a couple of reoccurring features stood out to me. 1. Big tires or tank treads. 2. Flat rectangular bases. 3. Action features in the front. 4. Extra details like lights and engines. And 5. Clips for dynamite and other tools. Now to stay in theme, I decided I would use similar elements in my build. To begin, I settled on tank treads with these cool hubcaps. I also mounted a flat rectangular base on these treads. I found a way to connect my plow, the gimmick, on the front of the base. Then I built up a structure of lime green on top of the base and put my other orange action features on that. Once I had this all done, it was time to add in the many details. First off, I added these sweet engines on the sides to power this vehicle. Next, I added these lights in the front for better underground navigation. I saw this empty space back by the storage container and stuck some white canisters back there. I also put some smaller details around here, like this pressure gauge for the tanks I just added, and a control panel for the claw. Finally, I included these clips to hold some tools and explosives for our little miner guy here. And hey, did I mention I made this custom minifigure? His design certainly isn't groundbreaking. Get it? Because he's a miner? Okay. But at least I wanted to do something special at least, rather than just reusing one of the Power Miner minifigures I already had. This new figure is named Bob, and he's the, plow specialist? I think all the important roles are taken up by the main crew, so his title is a bit underwhelming, I guess. But speaking of titles, I decided I needed a fitting name for this monstrosity. Other sets in this series typically have alliterative names that have something to do with mining. Granite Grinder, Cave Crusher, Rock Wrecker, and many, many more. I wanted to give my build a fitting name that is unique and yet still following the naming conventions of the series. I think I came up with a pretty good one. The Plow Pummeler! I realize that this doesn't really fit the build's purpose, which is cleaning up after other drilling machines, but I guess it could do some pummeling as well. And that concludes my build process. Now, all that's left to do is to make it an official set. I'll just chuck a rock monster in here and a couple of rocks and crystals, whip up a quick Photoshop of what the box might look like, and sell it ridiculously overpriced. Is $90 enough? Let's make it an even 100 to be safe. There. Now it's an official set. Hopefully this means the thumbnail isn't too clickbait. To wrap things up, I'll just say I had a really great time building this MOC, and I hope that this video inspired you to make your own LEGO builds as well. I'd love to hear your ideas for custom projects in the comments down below. And while you're down there, would you pummel the subscribe button too? Until next time, goodbye.